All right, welcome to Double Fries No Slaw Tuesday morning. Our call-in show presented by Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar. Appreciate them as always for their support. We'll get after a little bit. You certainly can call in on this one. We might be a little bit shorter just due to the hurricane and prep that needs to happen, but still wanted to jump on here and still wanted to chat a little bit and give you guys an opportunity to chat if you want to call in. There's a link in the description. It's the first line of the description, so you can go check that out. It is a little bit better if you could call in from a computer. I will say that the phone is a little bit tricky. If you're going to call in from your phone, put it on Do Not Disturb. That does seem to help a little bit. Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar. Appreciate them for their support. Locations in Warner Robins, Modesto, California, and then one up in Maryland as well, if anybody's up that way. I actually had a buddy that was going up through Warner Robins, Georgia. Hopefully he was able to make it through and go say hello to those folks. Hunter, I appreciate you. Yeah, the storm. All right, so a little bit of, we'll talk about that real quick, and then we'll talk a little FSU, since that's why I think people tuned in. But appreciate the well wishes and the thoughts. So we are kind of in the path. If there's any slight good news, it's that it does seem to be trending south. Good news for me. It's certainly not good news for other people that are kind of in more directly in the path, but it is trending a little south. I'm about 22 miles inland, and then about 15-ish as the crow flies miles from Tampa, maybe closer to 20 miles from Tampa. And so the further below Tampa it gets, then, I'm 20 miles north of that even. So that's kind of good for where we're at. We're also 70 plus feet above sea level. And so flooding here is, I don't want to say impossible, but the thing would just need to sit on top of us for like 5 days for me to worry about flooding. I do have some big oak trees on my property that worry me a little bit. But when it's coming through, I'll just kind of huddle up in the living room and be fine there. If a tree was to come through, it can't really reach that far. So anyway, I should be pretty good. I think we're staying. I don't think we're going anywhere, but we'll see. We've got a couple of offers to get out of town if we need to. So, all right. Let's, Lakeland, not a great, it looks like it's passing right over Lakeland. So not a great spot there. Our thoughts are with everybody. I mean, I'm certainly kind of in the thick of it too. It could certainly, it could shift last second and come up and get us where we're at. And if it does, we'll hunker down and get in the middle of the living room and hope that no trees come through my roof. That's probably my biggest fear at this point. So anyway, if you're in the path a little more directly than I am, certainly thinking about you. If we had smaller trees, if we didn't have such big oak trees, I'd feel better about staying. Everything other than the trees, I feel pretty good about. So, all right, let's talk a little football. I know that you guys are, some of you guys are in the path, and we're certainly thinking about you. But hopefully this will be a nice distraction for you for 20, 25 minutes. TJ, until we get, we'll just do comments today. I'm good with that. I'll share some thoughts too, but we'll do comments. TJ, until we get a competent O-line coach, what can be done to make the O-line just better than horrible? I don't know. I think the O-line just kind of is what it is. I will say, as discouraged as you might be with the O-line last night, like, you're only going to have two defenses that are that good for the rest of the year out of the last six, right? Duke, Carolina, Charleston, Southern Florida. None of those defensive lines are any good. And so you should, it's tough to judge them against Clemson because that D-line is just a lot better than you. And Miami's will be too. Notre Dame's will be too. Those are going to be tough games for your offensive line. I'd play young guys, at this point. I'd play, not everybody's just terrible, but like they do at times just get absolutely whipped, and it's one thing I think for like an Andre Otto to get whipped, like, okay, yeah, young guy, that kind of makes sense. It's another thing for Murray Smith to snap the ball over quarterback's head when he's actually driving you down the field. It's another thing for Darius Washington not be as good, or Jeremiah Byers or TJ Ferguson and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I'm pretty discouraged is, Otto gets whipped. That's fine. It's not fine, but it's like, okay, yeah, no, it's hard for me to hold a lot against him. When your vets are getting absolutely bull rushed, that's certainly a little bit more frustrating. But yeah, what changes can be made? I mean, nothing's going to change right now. Like you're just, I don't think the development at that position is very good. I think the recruiting is fairly good there, but the development's not good enough. So it doesn't matter how many 4-stars you bring in. It doesn't matter if you can't get them to be developed a little bit better. I don't know how else to put that. So, Morgan says, TJ, I know we were hyping up the secondary, and of all units, they've been the most consistent to me, but at least they seem to be underwhelming and have given up some big passing plays. What are your thoughts? Yeah, so they have been underwhelming. I think what's tough with the secondary is it's tough to judge if they are playing poorly or if, guys like Cade just have all day to throw back there and guys end up getting open because of that, right? So that's – and I'm just not smart enough to tell you. Like, there are definitely people that cover this team that are smarter than me and could kind of tell you the difference there. But I'm not trying to say that group hasn't played poorly at times. Like, I think Hussey, that experiment should probably be over. But anyway, it's hard to know. Like, it's hard to know exactly what the true cause is there. Because you could have 4 Deion Sanderses back there, and if you give the quarterback 7 seconds to throw, like, somebody's going to get open. And I thought, when Florida State got pressure on Cade, like, it was either feast or famine. Like, he either had just legitimately all day to throw and guys were getting open, or, we were kind of getting after him. So, yeah, that's tough. That's tough to know. And I still think the secondary is a bright spot on the team. I don't think they're quite as good as we thought, just like the rest of the team. But they're still they're still your best unit on defense and one of the better units on the team in general. Actually, yeah, I'll just say they're probably the best on the team, unless you want to say that maybe Brock is up there. Outside of like Mastro and Fitzgerald, I think the secondary's probably been your brightest spot. But that is tough to know. Cade had all day to throw. It felt like, especially in the first half. So notice that Toafili doesn't try to bounce the outside and runs right into a wall. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he has the kind of vision that that would be able to allow that to happen. I also don't know, like, when you're playing, I mean, certainly against maybe some of the younger other teams, not Clemson, when you're playing a team that or a defense that is really fast and really can get after it, I think that's tougher to do because you're just going to end up losing yards. To play devil's advocate to that, he starts trying to bounce it outside and loses like 2 or 3 yards because he's trying to run east to west. Then we're yelling about him doing that, and so maybe a little bit. I don't know how, I think you have to, at the end of the day, 8 out of 10 times, maybe 9 out of 10 times, you need to trust, what the play call is and not try and make, what do we yell at guys for? Sometimes like trying to do too much, could he bounce it outside at times? Sure. But if he did that too many times and lost yardage against a fast defense, then we'd probably complain about that. So I don't know. I think that if you had better blocking, if you had guys that, to me, it all comes back down to the offensive line. If you had better blocking, you wouldn't be asking for Toafili to bounce the ball outside too much. And, him doing it once or twice with, a bad offensive line, like, would be fine. But the problem is, like, the offensive line, I mean, we had like no rushing yards. Like, the only rushing yards we had were like Brock's scramble at the end, like his 4th down scramble and the scramble that ended the game. Otherwise, we'd have like 10 yards rushing. Like, that's just such piss poor pathetic. This rushing attack, man, that we thought was going to be really good. Like, it is so frustrating to see how bad they truly are. So, but that's hard to know. Again, I'm not trying to defend Toafili or say anything, but man, at the end of the day, if the offensive line just blocks well, you don't need to bounce it to the outside. You don't need to make a heroic Dalvin Cook type play. You just run. And so, yeah, it's another frustration, I'm sure, with the offensive line. But I do like the thought. I mean, it's certainly worth thinking about. I think Hussey, Jones, Joseph have a ton of upside going forward. I mean, maybe Conrad was just really bad, and I really liked him last year. I think he made massive plays. Maybe the moment's big, who knows, right? Like, maybe he can still be there. I do like Jones. I I like Edwin Joseph a ton. I think he's got real good potential. So I'm not saying you just write Hussey off. I just think he probably needs to play a little bit less this year. Let's keep rolling here. Bobby, with Brock getting first team reps now, don't you think the offense will perform much better before Duke? So yeah, I mean, I think they're going to play better against Duke because Duke's not nearly as good as Clemson. So Duke is 5-1, and I think ESPN has Duke is like a coin flip winner. What's ESPN have for this game? 59%. So what? 6 times out of 10, they say Duke wins this game. I mean, on the road too. On the road, they're basically saying that this is a coin flip. Yeah, I think so. I think Brock getting the first team reps for 3 straight weeks, right? All of Clemson week, all of the 2 Duke weeks. I think that helps a ton. I also think it helps that you're playing Duke and you're not playing Clemson. Like, Brock should look a little bit better. Now, I think the defenses are going to scheme a little bit better, and I think Manny Diaz is a good defensive coach. Like, you can say whatever you want about him as a head coach. Obviously, it didn't work out at Miami. But I think he is a good defensive coach. And I think the more that Brock puts on film, the less effective he will be overall. Now, how much less effective will he be against a defense like Clemson than, Duke, right? Like, so I do think that'll help some. I would it's hard to get up for every game. It's hard, like the defense has to treat Duke like they played against Clemson. But I would not be surprised at all if Florida State goes up and beats Duke. I think they may even be a favorite when that line comes out. We'll see what this looks like. But yeah, I think Brock having a couple of weeks there will help a ton. 0 running lanes for sure. With Brock at the helm, what's your record prediction? 3-9. Yeah, so I think they beat Charleston Southern. I think they split with the Carolina teams and they lose to Florida. So yeah, 3-9, which honestly, like, to be very fair, was kind of my prediction. Even if DJ did keep starting, I thought that they would still find a way to maybe split with the Carolina teams, who I think are really, really bad. However, I will say, like, you need to see it. You need to see them start to play better. But the possibility certainly exists that you could beat both Carolina teams, you could beat Charleston Southern, and you could beat Florida. Like, I'm not predicting them to go 4-6 down the stretch, or 4-2 in their last 6, but I think that possibility exists, right? You beat Duke, maybe you play Miami somewhat close, and kind of get out of there with a moral victory because you lose by 7 or something. You beat Carolina, you lose to Notre Dame, beat Charleston Southern, and you feel like you kind of have something to play for because you're up at 4 wins and the defense balls out against Florida. I mean, I guess you could get to 5 wins. It would surprise me if they could get to 6, right? That means you got to upset Notre Dame or Miami and have 0 slip-ups, and I don't want to react so crazily, but I guess 5 is kind of my ceiling. I mean, 2's the floor if we're just keeping it a buck. But yeah, I'd say 3 or 4 is probably most likely. Crazy to me that we rushed for 140 yards. Oh, we got a super chat. All right, we'll go to that, and then we'll come back through some of these. We're getting some good comments. 6 drive, 4 and out. TJ no run on 2nd and 2. Let's go look at the. Let me go look at the play-by-play. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the love today. Look, I'm going to do all the questions that I can in this time, but I certainly do appreciate the love of the super chat. So certainly not a requirement today, but I appreciate that. Let me pull up the play-by-play real quick and see what had happened just right before that. We did throw more than I thought we would. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we ended up punting on this drive. All right, 1st and 10. Okay, so I don't have that play like right in front of me, but you had just gotten off an 8-yard pass to Kentron. 2nd and 2. I mean, I don't know. So, I don't really want to defend Norvell here and give him any kind of like credit for anything, but they obviously couldn't run the ball and didn't think they could run the ball. And so if his decision was like, oh no, we're going to pass and we're going to be somewhat successful with it, which they were somewhat successful with it. I guess I understand the thought of not, throwing it. I also think on 2nd and 2, your entire playbook is wide open and you can take deep shots. I don't remember exactly what happened on that play, Brian. I don't know if you can remember. I see an incompletion here, but I'm not going to pull up the whole game and rewatch while we're on here. Can you let me know like what the attempt was? Like, did we try and go deep? To me, 2nd and 2 feels like a pretty good time to go deep because then you have 2 plays to try and get 2 yards. I don't know. Well, but we didn't run the ball super well, so I guess that's kind of why, they didn't go for it. 140 yards week 0 and haven't even gotten close to that since. Yeah, I mean, I will say it wasn't like 70 of that on the first drive, and so then, again, I hate to take away that first drive, but when I think about the season, I think about that first drive by itself, and then I just think about everything else. Maybe that's not really fair to the team because that drive did happen. But, I mean, if you think about it from that perspective, you basically had 70 yards for the whole game if you take away that first drive. Maybe that's not fair to do, but maybe it makes a little more sense since then. Brock is big enough threat to force the defense to run. Yeah, I think you'll see better running against Duke. I don't think it'll be great by any means, but I do think it'll be better than it was against Clemson. Brock plays well for the rest of the season, effectively wins the starting job. Do you think Luke transfers? Obviously a big if here, but something I'm worried about. All right, so good question here. I like this one a lot. I don't know. I don't know that I would be worried about Luke transferring or not. I would be interested to see how Luke develops, which, again, I don't think quarterback development has been, phenomenal by any means at Florida State recently either. They did a good job with Jordan for sure. But other guys that they've recruited, not very good, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I would get Luke in some to kind of see what you've got there, right? Like you don't want to just absolutely get him killed out there, but I would certainly try and see a little bit what you got because this staff is not very good apparently at evaluating what they're seeing in practice or even just giving guys a chance. I think I fully believe that this staff is not like stupid and that DJ was practicing better than Brock or Luke. But to not even give him a chance, until a guy broke his finger. Yeah, I would put Luke in a little bit this year just to kind of see what you've got, show him like, hey, yeah, there's a path for you to play here, and then have him battle it out. Like, I don't know, it was one game. Let's kind of see how Brock plays. I don't necessarily know that, it's time to anoint him like the quarterback of the future just yet. And so I'd say, like, let's see how, and I know you're not doing that, Morgan, but like, let's see how the next couple of weeks go. Let's see if he struggles or if he plays pretty well going forward. And then I'd go from there, right? So I don't know all that said, if somehow Brock comes out and you go 5-7 because he wins 4 of the next 6 games and looks really good doing it, then yeah, maybe Luke does. I'm not super worried about that at this moment. I think he's pretty bought in to Mike Norvell, this staff, being a Seminole. But let's see how things go. I mean, Arch Manning didn't transfer, and I think Luke has a quicker path to potentially get on the field than Arch did, right? So I don't know. How good can your staff keep the talent that's on it? Atkins, Fuller, who will be back next year? Morgan says, hopefully neither. Yeah, I don't know. I think you could probably upgrade both those positions if we're just being very honest. I think that what's tough with Atkins is Mike. I don't know if Mike will do it. I just don't. He's got the show cause. I don't know if Mike, if Mike fires him, can Alex get a new job? I mean, the answer is like, in theory, like, yes, he can. Like, it doesn't bar him from working anywhere else. It just makes it tougher for another place to hire him. And so would Mike kind of take that into consideration and not want to cut him loose because he feels bad? I mean, I think that chance is very real. I think that's something you got to think about. And not for me. I don't care. Like, he still made a ton of money. Like, I'm making YouTube videos for a living, right? Like, Alex will be fine one way or the other. But I do think Mike would think about that. And so maybe not. I think he's got to move on from Fuller, and I think he could upgrade both of those positions, both OC and defensive coordinator. I think that you could upgrade at offensive line too. I think you should upgrade at OC. I think Mike should bring in a play calling offensive coordinator, so that's one less thing on his plate. And I think the development at offensive line has been pretty piss poor and should be improved. My thought would be to maybe hire an OC that can also be your quarterback's coach. I don't know what that would mean for Tony. I don't believe that you should elevate Tony to the OC position. I don't know that he's ready to call plays. We'll see. But yeah, I think you could upgrade both those positions, and it would frustrate me if they don't upgrade either. I don't know. I don't know that. I think Mike will upgrade at least one. That's just a gut thing. I know nobody's told me, but I think it's probably time to try and upgrade both of them. Both struggle pretty poorly, and both could be much, much better. Threw the ball on 3rd and 2 as well. Yeah, I agree. So maybe the thinking was more so that they just could not run the ball, like that they could not have any kind of confidence in the running game, which the running game was pretty terrible. So maybe that makes sense that they would just throw the ball. What's that say about your running game and your offensive line if you trust Brock Glenn, more to go pick up the first down than anybody else? But yeah, that's a good point. Who else we got? Show causes a huge deal, I think, which is why Atkins stays. He could bring in an actual OC though. So here's a question: you can't afford? I don't think you could afford to. Could you afford to do that? K-Dog 350. That's a good comment. Could you afford to do that? Like, could you? I mean, you're going to demote Atkins just to O-line? I mean, with his contract, I don't think you can pay him less. You just have to be paying an O-line coach by himself. What is it? 1.2 that Atkins is making? I don't know if you could do that. I don't know if you could afford. I mean, yeah, you could afford it, right? Like Florida State could afford it, but like, is that a good use of funds to pay him an offensive coordinator salary to just coach the O-line and coach it poorly? I don't think that that's necessarily very wise. I don't know. Certainly something to think about. But yeah, I don't think you could do both. I think you either got to fire him or move on. I don't know. I think you got to move on though. The offensive line is so bad. You need an offensive coordinator because I don't think that's something that Mike is doing extremely well. It's less about Atkins to me and more about just trying to make, the roster better, or I'm sorry, the staff better. And I think that the offensive line recruiting has been fine. The development's been pretty bad. The offensive line play has been pretty bad. I think you need to upgrade there if you can, right? If you can't upgrade, then that's one thing. But, yeah, I don't think you can keep him on just because he's got a show cause. I've certainly stinks, feel bad, but at the same time, he's pretty set for a little while with the salary that he's been making. So, it's not like it's, me out of a job. You're talking about a millionaire that's out of a job, right, for a year. Our running game's better than Kent State. Could get worse. Yeah, I saw we're 133, not 134. Hakeem was really good. Yeah, I mean, I was encouraged by the way the young guys played. Amari, Landon, Hakeem was okay. So did Jaylen Brown play at all? I haven't gone back and rewatched it. I don't need to be depressed again. But I didn't see. I mean, I certainly didn't see him catch anything. I guess I could look up a snap count. FSU Clemson snap count 2024. But yeah, I don't know why we didn't see. All right, Brock Glenn, wide receiver. Yeah, Jaylen Brown, maybe still hurt, maybe in trouble. Who knows, man? But Jaylen Brown, no snaps. So that's interesting, right? McCoy got 14. Gibson got 3. I wonder where Josh Moore, where Moore is. He felt like he was somebody that would play a little bit more. No pun intended. Atkins hasn't developed online. Yep, agree. That's been really bad. Saw a stat that 93% of Cam Davis' rushing yards are after contact. Yeah, I don't understand how bad this rushing attack is. It truly doesn't make sense to me. Benson was good, but he wasn't this good. We can just be honest. I like Trey Benson a lot, and he was really good. First 3 rounds, good. But he wasn't this good. He was not this good. This is absurd how they are, anyway, I don't need to kind of go into that so far. But yeah, it's not been good by any means. Yeah, I don't know. This says that Jaylen didn't have any snaps. So I don't know if maybe he had some on special teams, but I didn't see any at wide receiver, at least by this snap tracker that I looked up really quickly. And then I don't really remember him on the field much past that either. So Landon Thomas, more snaps. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I talked about that. I think you should go pretty heavy youth movement everywhere you can. Even so, guys like Peyton and Farmer are still performing for you. I mean, they're not performing extremely well, but they're still performing, and they're probably the best that you could, do at defensive line just because you've not recruited that position very well. But I do think that, other places like wide receiver, like we probably need to be done with 1. We probably need to be done with 21. I don't know why, you put Williamson in for, I think, 2 plays and one of them was a drop. It's just like, what are we doing, man? Like, let's probably move on from there. Washington, Ferguson, Smith, and Byers played every single snap. Otto and Early split at the guard position. Otto having 4 times the reps that Early got. That's probably just what you're going to get, unless you can get. With Leonard out, I don't know. Your options are pretty limited. That offensive line just isn't very good. Like, if we're just being honest with ourselves, and I don't, somebody asked earlier, can it get better? I don't know that it can get much better, but yeah, the run blocking, like I said, I don't think Trey Benson was this good to make that offensive line just look incredible. Like, they were a good run blocking team last year. We ran the ball fairly well. It wasn't amazing, but we ran the ball fairly well. And so I don't understand how that has just completely fallen off of a cliff. Hey, let me tell you guys one more time. If you're in any of the locations near a Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar, that's Modesto, California, Warner Robins, Georgia, or Fulton, Maryland, make sure that you stop in and tell them that we said hello. We actually have some of their product coming. We're going to do some giveaways once it's set and ready to go. So I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate Decadent for their support. Saw my guy Patrick over at the game on Saturday. Good times as always. Appreciate them for hanging out. Elijah Moore looking really good in camp. Any idea why he hadn't seen the field at all? Nope, I have no idea. I also have, let me back up. Well, no, I'll just say it. I also have no confidence in the staff to evaluate and put the right guys on the field because they just haven't seemed to have done that for quite a while. And so, maybe he's not ready. Maybe they just are kind of clueless. Maybe I have no idea. Maybe they think he's, maybe they're trying to protect him for some reason. I have no idea. But yeah, I think he should probably be in a little bit more, no pun intended again, than like Williamson or Kentron or these guys that are like 4 or 5 years in your program and they can't figure out how to catch a ball, I also worry about the development of guys like McCoy and Moore until you get a wide receiver coach that seems like he can develop people in. Dewspan has been in some. I mean, we threw a long pass to him a couple of weeks ago, and it was way out of bounds. So it didn't matter. But I'd probably be done with the Dewspan experiment too. Like, again, just a guy that is not going to figure into the long-term future at Florida State. Like, play your young guys that are going to matter for the future. And I'm not saying the Deuce doesn't matter. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. But yeah, I'd probably be done with that experiment too. Like, that's not. Even if he was to come back, which he shouldn't, that's not a player that's going to make a big time difference for you long term. You should probably be playing the guys that are going to matter long term, even if the young guys are getting, dropping the ball and whatever. Like, I'd rather see a young guy drop it than somebody that's a little bit older. The only older guy that I want to see out there is Ja'Kai, and even he had a big drop the other day, but he makes enough plays to probably make up for one drop in the year. So Ja'Kai is one that I think you kind of need to continue to see. Brock looks good and disappointed in Norvell for not putting him on the field and getting playing time. Our season is so over. DJ has no leadership. Yeah, I agree. We were even saying like, oh, I get why they're starting this guy or doing this or doing that. But at this point, like, the fact that we never even tried it with how poorly things were going, is a little bit frustrating. But, it's almost like the better that Brock looked, the worse it was going to look for Norvell, like just, and I people want the guys in the press conference to be like confrontational. I don't think you necessarily are ever going to get that, but literally just like which I didn't listen to the press conference because I just get frustrated with the coach speak and the BS answers. But just kind of the idea of like, hey man, do you kind of regret not going to Brock with how he played tonight? He had the best quarterback grade for any quarterback, for any game that we've had this year. That's insane that we didn't go to him faster. Like, what are we doing? So anyway, all right, we've been doing this for about 30 minutes now. I am going to run, we got a lot of storm prep to do. If you're in the path, if you're anywhere near this thing in Central Florida, we're thinking about you. Our prayers are up with you. I'm literally going to do storm prep now for the rest of the day. So hopefully you guys stay safe. Hopefully you guys stay protected. Be careful out there. It is insane. If you're south of me, which I'm in like the Lutz area, certainly take caution and listen to local authorities and do all those things, because it is worrisome for sure when you look at it. So prayers up, everybody. We're thinking about you, and hope everybody stays safe. We will talk to you soon. Again, thank you to Decadent for their support. Thank you guys for tuning in on a Tuesday morning. We'll be back next Tuesday morning as well to do this again, and hopefully be talking about a game that we're going to win when we look at Duke. Appreciate you guys a ton. Talk to you soon. Go Noles.